On this day, in 1934, Don Sandy Milne was on a mission. An honorary instructor for the Southport Gliding and Flying Club, Sandy had been chasing the world record for the longest unassisted flight duration for a couple of months, set at 1 hour 45 minutes 3 years earlier. To accomplish his feat, he intended on utilising the Southport Club's prize glider, the Pelican. 3 weeks earlier, on the 4th of March, Sandy had successfully beaten both his personal duration record and Queensland's distance record in the same glider, managing to stay aloft for 66 minutes over a distance of 30 miles. Admittedly, Sandy's previous in the air personal best was a very humbling 3 minutes 25 seconds set a year earlier, with the Queensland distance record having stood at 2.5 miles. However, a record was a record regardless of how it was spun, and now Sandy had his sights set on the international target. For a number of years prior, Sandy had been extensively studying the science behind atmospheric conditions, cloud formation, and the intricacies of unattended flight. A dead keen glider enthusiast, he had championed the formation of glider clubs and aerial training schools up and down the east coast of Australia, with a constant willingness to share his knowledge with other sailplaning initiates. As nimble behind the stick of a powered monoplane as a glider, Sandy's career in the air hadn't come without a few very close brushes with death. In 1930, the fearless aviator was lucky to walk away from a nasty sailplane crash at Mascot when his craft violently nosedived into the ground from 8 metres up whilst being manoeuvred to demonstrate the finer points of gliding before an intrepid audience. Again, in 1932, and this time as a passenger in a Dasuda monoplane travelling between Sydney and Brisbane, Sandy Milne stared death in the face. On the plane struggling through continuous bad weather from the moment it left Sydney on the run north, the pilot made the decision to effect a landing on the beach near Evans Head, just south of the Queensland border. With the tide running high, the pilot timed the landing to coincide with the back swell. However, on putting down, he managed to skew the plane straight into the oncoming breakers. As the next set of waves broke onto the beach and swamped their monoplane, the pilot rapidly throttled the engine and managed to avoid a stall whilst the propeller gripped the water, much like a boat's propeller, and swung the craft from the depths back towards the beach in safety. The occupants, shaking their heads at their near demise, spent the night clambering in the plane's cockpit amidst the rain, before managing a miraculous takeoff and final flight to Brisbane the next morning. Again, in 1933, Sandy was at the helm of a glider when the craft's stay cable snapped west of Brisbane during a flight at Marburg, and again, luckily, he escaped unscathed when his glider wedged itself in a thicket of trees on descent. But despite his previous trials and tribulations, the 25th of March would be Sandy's day. With the wind blowing at 6 knots and an almost clear sky, Sandy was towed to speed along the sand at Palm Beach on the Gold Coast at 2:14 p.m. and was finally aloft. As his glider slowly spiralled over the region, the minutes ticked away as Sandy first surpassed his prior Queensland record of 66 minutes, and then amazingly exceeded the world record at about 4 p.m. From this moment on, Sandy knew that every extra minute aloft would count. Gliding over Burleigh, a few small clouds began to blow across his path at 200 feet or 60 metres above the treetops, and in an endeavour to fly through one of them, his glider was caught in a freak whirlwind and downdraft. Within seconds, the craft was plummeting earthwards, and without power, there was little Sandy could do to halt his descent. Miraculously, the glider came down, perfectly upright, into the trees on Big Burleigh. The branches of the trees perfectly supported the wings of the glider, the only damage caused being some slightly torn fabric and no doubt Sandy's ego. Regardless of his landing style, Sandy Milne had managed to keep his glider in the air for 1 hour 55 minutes over a distance of 45 miles, setting a new world record for unassisted flight. Over the following years, he would again extend his own world record in amongst a few more glider crashes, the next benchmark coming in 1936 when he again re-established the world record for unassisted flight at 2 hours 25 minutes.